Jacques grew up under the burning Haitian sun in a little neighborhood where people lived close enough to hear each other's heartbeat. He wasn't rich. His clothes were often patched, and his sandals wore thin before his feet stopped growing. But Jacques had a good heart, and in Haiti, sometimes that's all you have. He met Marie at a street party during Carnival. She wore a white dress that floated around her like a cloud, and when she laughed, Jacques swore he heard church bells. "Bonjour, mademoiselle," Jacques said, offering her a soda he could barely afford. Marie smiled, that wide, brilliant smile, and took it from his hands without hesitation. "You're kind," she said, sipping. "Not like most boys around here." From that night on, Jacques was gone. His friends warned him, "Be careful," his friend Timano said. "Girls like Marie, they looking for more than love." But Jacques didn't listen. He walked Marie home after every date. He wrote her small love notes. He promised her everything he had, and everything he dreamed of. "Soon," Jacques whispered one night under the stars, "I'll go to the US, and then I'll come back for you. We'll start a life there, a new life." Marie leaned her head against his shoulder. "I can't wait," she said sweetly, though her eyes looked past him. What Jacques didn't know was that while he saved every dollar, every gourd, every dream, Marie was sleeping with other men. Men in government positions, men who wore fine suits and gave her fancy dinners. Jacques never saw it. Love made him blind and deaf. When Jacques finally boarded the plane to America, he cried as the engines roared, not out of sadness, but hope. He was building a future for his love. In Brooklyn, Jacques worked 2 jobs, constructions during the day, security at night. He slept 4 hours a night and sent half his paycheck home to Marie. Every call he made back to Haiti was full of promises. "Soon, Marie. Soon. You'll be here with me. I'll get you out." One night, after a late shift, Jacques stumbled into a Haitian restaurant, tired and hungry. That's when he met Eliana, soft-spoken, kind, and radiant. "You look like you need a good meal," she said, sliding a plate of griot and pickles in front of him with a warm smile. Jacques chuckled shyly. "Merci, madame. I think you just saved my life." They talked for hours that night, about Haiti, about family, about dreams. Over the next few months, Eliana became the light Jacques didn't know he needed. She helped him study English, helped him fix his broken shoes, even helped him find a better job. Jacques found himself smiling again, laughing again. One evening, after dinner, Eliana looked at him carefully. "Jacques," she said softly, "I can help you. You don't have to struggle alone. My house. You can have your name on it too. We can build something real." Jacques' heart twisted. He thought about Marie, the promises he made under the Haitian stars. He looked down at his hands, rough and tired. "I'm sorry, Eliana," he said, voice trembling. "I made a promise. I have to keep it." Eliana's eyes filled with tears she quickly wiped away. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "Because I do love you." But Jacques stood up and walked away. Walking away from a real love without even knowing it, Jacques brought Marie to America a few months later. When she stepped off the plane, Jacques felt like his chest would explode. "Welcome to your new home," he said. Beaming, Marie barely smiled. She looked around, unimpressed. "This is it?" she said, wrinkling her nose. Jacques ignored it. He thought she was tired. He thought love could fix anything. They married in a small, crowded courthouse. Jacques bought her a simple gold ring. Marie barely looked at him when she said, "I do." Still, Jacques was happy. And soon they had 2 children, a boy and a girl. Jacques named them after his parents. Jacques loved his children more than life itself. Every morning, before the sun rose, he kissed their foreheads. Every night, no matter how tired he was, he sat by their beds and told them stories about Haiti. about mango trees and warm beaches, about family and dreams. But Marie was changing. Or maybe she had never changed at all. When Jacques was at work, Marie was out, dressing up, going to parties, whispering on the phone late into the night. She started coming home smelling of men's cologne. Jacques noticed, but he crushed the doubts deep down in his chest. At first, it was little things. Complaints. "You don't make enough money," she said coldly one night, arms crossed. "Other men are doing better for their wives." One evening, while Jacques folded laundry in the living room, he overheard Marie on the phone. "He's useless," she said, laughing. "A real loser. Only good for paying bills." Jacques froze, holding a small shirt of his son's against his chest. His heart cracked quietly, without sound. Later that night, he confronted her. "Marie," Jacques said, voice shaking, "is this how you really see me?" Marie didn't even look guilty. She rolled her eyes. "Si te gêne plus l'argent, moins pas ta besoin l'autre main. If you had more money, I wouldn't need other men." Jacques stood there, silent. He wanted to scream, but the children were asleep. "I work 2 jobs, Marie," he said, pleading. "I give you everything I can." Marie shrugged. "Well, it's not enough." A few weeks later, Jacques' brother came to visit from Florida. Jacques was happy. Finally, family, someone who would understand him. They cooked, they drank, they laughed late into the night. Jacques thought, for once, things are okay. He didn't know that while he stepped out to buy more drinks, Marie and his brother had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Then came the day that broke Jacques completely. He came home from work, tired but happy, carrying 2 bags of groceries. He dreamed of cooking a big meal for the kids. But when he pushed the door open, silence. The house was empty. The couches, the chairs, the dining table, gone. The curtains ripped from the windows. The closets stripped bare. Even the children's toys were gone. "Marie?" Jacques called out, stepping deeper into the hollow house. His voice echoed off the bare walls. No answer. He stumbled into the bedroom, empty. The children's room, empty. His knees buckled. The only thing left was a single crumpled picture of his family, lying face down on the floor. Jacques sank to his knees, clutching the photo, shaking. A knock came from the front door. It was his neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, a kind older woman who had always admired Jacques' dedication to his family. "I'm so sorry, Jacques," she said gently, eyes full of pity. They left. "A moving truck came this morning. She said they're never coming back." Jacques' hands trembled. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Tears streamed down his face, silent and endless. In the following weeks, Jacques fought harder than he ever had in his life. He filed for custody. He begged to see his children. He gathered every photo, every birthday card, every memory as proof that he loved them. But in court, Marie sat there in her fine dress, full of lies. She told the judge Jacques was abusive, that he never cared for the children. The kids, poisoned by Marie's words, looked at Jacques with fear and confusion. When Jacques tried to approach them in court, his daughter cried out, "Don't touch me!" Jacques froze. His heart shattered again into 1,000 pieces. The judge ruled against him. Jacques lost. Weeks later, Jacques received a thick envelope in the mail, divorce papers, and a demand he had to pay Marie $200,000 or she would take everything else he had left. She claimed pain and suffering, but Jacques knew it was all lies. He refinanced the house he had worked so hard for, and handed over the money. His friends told him to fight, but Jacques was tired. So tired. "I just want peace," he whispered. He still tried to reach the kids, phone calls, letters, birthday gifts, but they were all returned unopened. Finally, one rainy night, Jacques sat alone in the house that once echoed with laughter, staring at his phone, waiting for a call that never came, and he gave up. Jacques worked himself to the bone. Day after day, he woke up before the sun, dragging his tired body to the construction site. At night, he pushed a mop through long, empty hallways, the buzz of fluorescent lights his only company. Sometimes, in the middle of mopping, he would stop and lean against the wall, clutching his chest, feeling the heavy emptiness sitting there like a stone. He would think of his children's laughter, of their tiny hands in his, of the dreams he once had, and he would cry quietly, wiping his tears with the sleeve of his uniform before getting back to work. Meanwhile, Marie's life was not as golden as she thought. The man she had left Jacques for, the one who had promised her the world, had a secret. One afternoon, while shopping at the supermarket, Marie spotted him laughing with another woman and 2 children. At first, she thought nothing of it, but then the woman kissed him. Marie's heart sank. She approached, trembling. "Who is this?" she demanded. The man's face turned cold. His smile disappeared. "I don't know you," he said, pulling his real family closer and walking away. Marie stood there, humiliated, while people in the store started. Later that night, she sat in her empty apartment, crying bitterly. She thought about Jacques. She thought about the way he used to smile at her, the way he carried all the groceries without complaining, the way he kissed their children goodnight. "I threw it all away," she sobbed. Weeks later, Marie tried to call Jacques. He didn't answer. She called again and again. Finally, one night, Jacques saw her name flash across the screen of his old phone. His thumb hovered over the answer button. He stared at it for a long time. Then he pressed decline. Marie showed up at his job site one afternoon, wearing a cheap dress, her makeup smeared. "Jacques!" she called out, running up to him. "Please, listen to me. I made a mistake." Jacques stood there, covered in dust and sweat, the sun beating down on him. He looked at her with tired, hollow eyes. Jacques shook his head slowly, his voice low but steady. "You didn't just break me, Marie. You poisoned everything good we had." Marie's eyes filled with tears. "I know, Jacques, I know," she whispered. "But people change. I changed." Jacques looked at her, truly looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't feel anger. He didn't even feel sadness. He felt nothing. "You changed when you realized the world doesn't owe you anything," Jacques said. "But it's too late." Marie dropped to her knees right there in the dirt, in front of all the construction workers. "Please, I'm begging you. I have nothing, Jacques. I have no one," she cried. The workers looked away, pretending not to notice, but the humiliation was thick in the air. Jacques knelt down to her level and said quietly, "You had everything, and you threw it away for nothing." He stood up, turned his back on her, and walked away without looking back. That night, Jacques sat on his small balcony, sipping coffee out of a chipped mug. The stars blinked above him, silent witnesses to his pain. He thought about the other woman, the one who had once offered him her love, her loyalty, even her home. He remembered her last words before she walked away. "You'll regret this because I do love you." And he had regretted it deeply, but now, something inside him stirred. Maybe it wasn't too late to find happiness again. 2 weeks later, Jacques gathered his courage and found the number of the woman he had once loved, the woman who had loved him first. Her name was Eliana. His hands shook as he called her. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, and then he heard her voice. "Hello?" Jacques took a deep breath. "Eliana, it's Jacques." There was a long silence, then a soft, cautious reply. "Jacques? After all this time?" "I know," Jacques said quickly. "I know I hurt you. I know I chose wrong. But I never forgot you, not for a single day." There was another long pause. Jacques' heart raced. Then Eliana said, her voice trembling, "Come see me." When Jacques arrived at her house, he saw her standing outside, arms crossed, guarded but beautiful as ever. Jacques stepped carefully toward Eliana, his heart thudding painfully in his chest. The evening breeze stirred her hair, and in the fading light, she looked almost like a dream. "Hi," Jacques said quietly. Eliana didn't smile. Her arms stayed crossed. "You hurt me, Jacques," she said, her voice steady, but filled with buried pain. "I loved you. I trusted you. And you threw it away." Jacques nodded, swallowing hard. "I know, I was a fool. I thought keeping a promise was more important than following my heart. I thought I was doing the right thing." "And how did that work out for you?" Eliana asked bitterly. Jacques lowered his eyes. "I lost everything." There was a long silence between them. Jacques could hear his own breathing, feel the weight of her judgment, but he didn't run this time. "I'm not here to make excuses," he finally said. "I'm here to ask if you have any space left in your heart for me." Eliana's eyes softened, but she shook her head slowly. "I'm not the same woman you left behind, Jacques." "I don't expect you to be," he said quickly. "I'm not the same man either." For a moment, neither spoke. Then, with a sigh, Eliana opened the gate and stepped aside. "Come in," she said. Inside, they sat at her small kitchen table. The house smelled of cinnamon and fresh bread. Eliana poured them tea. Jacques looked around, noticing small things. A picture of her family on the wall, a Bible open on the counter, a little plant thriving on the windowsill. "You built a good life," Jacques said quietly. "I had to," she replied. "No one was going to save me." Jacques stared at his cup. "I want to be part of your life again, if you'll let me, even if we just start as friends." Eliana looked at him carefully. "And what about Marie?" "Marie is my past," Jacques said firmly. "She's not my future." Eliana studied him for a long moment. Then, she nodded once. "Friends?" she said. "That's where we start." A small, real smile tugged at Jacques' lips for the first time in a long, long time. "Friends," he repeated. Over the next few months, Jacques and Eliana rebuilt something fragile but beautiful. They went for walks, they shared meals, they laughed again, small laughs at first, like old wounds learning how to heal. Jacques worked hard, still paying child support for the children he rarely saw, but now his heart wasn't so heavy. The months passed gently. Jacques and Eliana spent slow evenings talking over coffee, walking in the park, or reading together at her kitchen table. They laughed again. Real laughter. The kind Jacques hadn't heard from himself in years. One evening, after a church service, they sat in Eliana's backyard under the stars. "You seem happier now," Eliana said, handing him a bowl of soup. Jacques nodded, savoring the warmth. "I am," he said. "You remind me that life can still be good." Eliana smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "And your children?" Jacques stared at the stars for a long moment. "I still think about them every day. I send birthday cards, letters, even if they never answer." "You're a good father," Eliana said quietly. Jacques shook his head. "I don't know about that, but I know I still love them, even if they hate me." Eliana reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "You have a good heart, Jacques. They'll see it one day. Maybe not now, but someday." Meanwhile, Marie's life was falling apart. After the man who tricked her disappeared, Marie spiraled into depression. She bounced between apartments, struggling to find work. Her beauty, once her weapon, was fading. Her friends, if they ever were friends, drifted away. One night, desperate and lonely, she called Jacques. The phone rang in Eliana's kitchen as Jacques was helping her dry dishes. When Jacques saw the number, his heart froze. "It's Marie," he said, hesitating. Eliana looked at him carefully. "You don't have to answer," she said softly. "You owe her nothing." Jacques stared at the phone. Then he put it down. "I don't need to go back," he said. "Not even to look." Eliana smiled sadly and handed him another plate. Across town, Marie sat alone in a dingy apartment staring at her phone. "Please," she whispered. "Please, Jacques." No answer. She threw the phone across the room and broke down crying, realizing fully, painfully, what she had lost, and what she could never get back. One chilly morning a few weeks later, Jacques took Eliana on a surprise trip. "Where are we going?" she asked, laughing as he drove. "You'll see." They pulled up in front of a small, pretty house with blue shutters. Jacques turned off the engine and looked at Eliana nervously. "This is my surprise," he said. Eliana blinked. "Jacques, what is this place?" He smiled shyly, his hands fidgeting on the steering wheel. "I bought it. It's ours, if you want it to be." Eliana's mouth fell open in shock. "Ours? Jacques, you don't have to." "I want to," he said firmly. His voice trembled slightly. "You stood by me when I had nothing, when I was broken. You loved me when I didn't love myself. I want to build something real with you." Tears welled up in Eliana's eyes. "But are you sure? After everything you've been through?" Jacques reached for her hand. "I'm sure," he said. "I'm finally free." Eliana threw her arms around him, and they stayed like that for a long time, right there in the car, two souls finding a home in each other. Meanwhile, Marie's life continued to unravel. She lost her apartment, and the few belongings she had left were taken by the landlord. Her own children, poisoned by her years of lies and betrayal, started pulling away. They stayed more at friends' houses, not wanting to hear her bitter rants. One evening, Marie looked in the cracked mirror of a public bathroom. Her face, once beautiful and admired, now looked tired and hardened. She whispered to her reflection, "You had it all, and you threw it away." A deep sadness filled her, the kind of sadness that doesn't leave. Marie realized she had no one left, not Jacques, not the men she chased, not even her children. She sat down on the floor and cried, not just for what she lost, but for who she had become. Back at the new house, Jacques and Eliana were painting the walls together, laughing as they accidentally smeared paint on each other's faces. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't fancy, but it was filled with love, hope, and a future. As Jacques painted, he thought about his life, the pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak. And yet, here he was, standing in the middle of a new beginning. He dipped his brush into the paint and smiled. "I guess God wasn't done with me after all," he whispered. Eliana laughed, hearing him. "No, he wasn't," she said, grinning. "He was just getting started." And for the first time in a long, long time, Jacques truly believed it. The days turned into months. Jacques and Eliana's little house slowly transformed into a home. On weekends, they would plant flowers in the front yard. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch with cups of tea, talking about everything and nothing. Jacques even started laughing again. The deep, real kind of laugh that only comes when your heart is finally healing. One night, as they sat watching the stars, Eliana leaned her head on Jacques' shoulder. "You seem lighter these days," she said softly. Jacques smiled. "I guess when you finally let go of the people who were never for you, you start to find peace." Eliana squeezed his hand. "And love," she added. "Real love." Jacques kissed her forehead. "Real love," he echoed. Meanwhile, Marie's situation worsened. Unable to hold a job, she ended up working at a small restaurant, cleaning tables and scrubbing floors. The once proud woman who thought she could conquer anything now bowed her head low, avoiding the gaze of anyone she once knew. Sometimes she would see families laughing together at the tables, parents with their children, husbands and wives holding hands. Each time, it felt like a knife twisting deeper into her chest. One night, after a long shift, she sat alone on a park bench, looking at a picture of Jacques on her old cracked phone. A photo from the days when he adored her, when he would have given her the world. Tears blurred her vision. "I'm sorry, Jacques," she whispered into the darkness. "I was wrong, but apologies spoken to the wind rarely find their way back." Back at Jacques' house, he and Eliana were preparing for a special evening. Jacques had cooked dinner, his mother's famous griot recipe, and lit candles around the living room. He pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket, his hands trembling slightly. When Eliana walked in, she gasped. "Jacques, what's all this?" she said, laughing. Jacques stood up, his heart pounding. "I have something to ask you." Eliana froze as he got down on one knee. "Eliana," Jacques said, voice thick with emotion. "You came into my life when I thought it was over. You believed in me. You loved me without asking for anything in return. I want to spend the rest of my life loving you back. Will you marry me?" Tears poured down Eliana's cheeks as she nodded furiously. Eliana covered her mouth, sobbing and smiling at the same time. "Yes, Jacques!" she cried. "Yes!" 1,000 times. "Yes!" Jacques slipped the simple gold ring onto her finger, his hands trembling with joy. They hugged tightly, holding each other like they never wanted to let go. For the first time in years, Jacques felt whole. "You saved me, Eliana," Jacques whispered in her ear. "You saved my life. And you saved mine," she whispered back. They spent the night dancing in the living room, no music, just laughter, and the sound of hearts finally at peace. Across town, Marie sat alone in a dingy apartment, staring at the eviction notice taped to her door. Her new boyfriend, the one she thought would save her, had disappeared, just like all the others. Her so-called friends stopped answering her calls. Even her family in Haiti, who once bragged about her success, now barely spoke to her. She had nothing. One night, desperate and broken, she decided to go to Jacques' house. She found the address through an old court document. She thought maybe, just maybe, she could talk to him. Maybe he would forgive her. When she arrived, she stood across the street, watching. She saw Jacques and Eliana through the window, laughing as they cooked dinner together. She saw Jacques lift Eliana into his arms playfully, kissing her forehead. Marie's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. That used to be me, she thought bitterly. That could have been me. But deep down, she knew. She had destroyed it all with her own hands. The next day, Jacques and Eliana sat in the living room, going over their wedding plans. "I want a small ceremony," Jacques said. "Just family." "Real family." Eliana smiled. "Whatever makes you happy." Jacques hesitated for a moment. I wish my children could be there," he said quietly. His eyes clouded with sadness. Eliana squeezed his hand. "They know where to find you, Jacques. When they're ready, they'll come." Jacques nodded. "I just hope, when they do come, it's not too late." Meanwhile, Marie sank deeper into depression. One night she picked up the phone and called her children, the ones she had poisoned against Jacques. "Hi, baby," she said when her daughter answered. "What do you want?" Her daughter snapped. Marie closed her eyes, trying not to cry. I just wanted to hear your voice." "You never cared about us," her daughter said coldly. "You only cared about what you could get from people." "That's not true." Marie's voice cracked. "We know everything now, Mom," her son chimed in on the other line. "Dad never left us. You kept him away." Marie gasped, stunned. "Who told you that?" "We found out ourselves. We saw the court papers, the messages he sent you. You lied to us our whole lives." The line went quiet. Marie's heart thudded painfully in her chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry for everything." Her daughter spoke again, her voice cold as ice. "We don't hate you, Mom, but we don't trust you either. Maybe one day, but not now." Then the line went dead. Marie sat there staring at the wall, realizing she had lost not only Jacques, but her children too. And it was all her fault. Back at Jacques's house, Eliana found him sitting on the porch, looking at the stars. He looked peaceful. Different from the man he used to be. The man who was broken. The man who thought he wasn't worth love. "You okay, love?" Eliana asked, sitting beside him. Jacques smiled softly. "I'm more than okay. For the first time, I think. I'm free." Eliana leaned her head on his shoulder. "You deserve this happiness, Jacques. You fought so hard for it." He turned and kissed her gently. "No," he said. "We fought for it. Together." They sat there quietly, the stars twinkling above them, their future wide open. Jacques finally understood that sometimes God removes people from your life to protect your heart, even if it hurts at first. And when real love finds you, it's worth everything you went through. Years passed. Jacques and Eliana built a beautiful life together, a life filled with love, trust, and laughter. They bought a small home in Florida, surrounded by mango trees and bright hibiscus flowers. Jacques no longer had to work 2 jobs. With Eliana's support, he started his own small business fixing houses, and people respected and trusted him. At first, Jacques still thought about his children every day. Every birthday, every holiday, he quietly wished they would come back. He kept an extra chair at the table, just in case. But over time, Jacques learned to let go of the pain. He realized that love wasn't about forcing someone to stay. It was about giving them freedom, even the freedom to walk away. One Sunday afternoon, as Jacques was planting flowers in the yard, Eliana came outside with her phone in her hand, a strange look on her face. "Jacques," she said gently, "someone's here to see you." Jacques looked up, confused, and then he saw them. 2 young adults, a young man and woman, standing awkwardly by the gate. His heart stopped. It was his children. They looked nervous, older, but their eyes were still the same. For a moment, none of them moved. Then Jacques dropped his tools and walked toward them, tears welling in his eyes. His daughter spoke first. "Dad, we're sorry. We didn't know. We were wrong." Jacques's voice broke as he whispered, "I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day." His son rushed forward and hugged him tightly, sobbing. "I'm sorry, Papa. I'm so sorry." Jacques hugged them both, holding on as if he would never let go again. Eliana stood by the porch, smiling through her tears. She knew this was the healing Jacques had been waiting for. Later that night, as they sat around the dinner table, the chairs finally full, Jacques looked around and felt something deep inside him. Peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from a perfect life, but the kind that comes from surviving the worst and still choosing to love. Marie, somewhere out there, lived with her regrets. She spent her days trying to fix what she had broken, but some things can't be undone. She had made her choices. Jacques had made his too, and he chose forgiveness, he chose love, he chose life. As he held his children's hands and Eliana's hand, Jacques whispered to himself. He closed his eyes for a moment and silently thanked God for everything, for the heartbreak that taught him strength, for the betrayals that taught him wisdom, for the loneliness that taught him how precious true love was, and for the second chance he never thought he would have. Jacques smiled through the tears that still clung to his lashes. He had lost so much, but he had gained even more. His daughter leaned her head against his shoulder and whispered, "We love you, Papa." And this time, Jacques knew it was real. No lies, no pretending. Just love. Pure, painful, healing love. He squeezed their hands a little tighter, his heart full. The past would always be there. The scars would never completely fade. But the future was bright. Jacques finally understood. Sometimes the best endings come after the hardest battles. And now, for the first time in a long time, Jacques was truly home. The sun was setting in Florida, casting a golden glow over the little home Jacques and Eliana had built. In the backyard, Jacques sat in a rocking chair watching his grandchildren chase each other around the mango trees. Their laughter filled the air, sweeter than any music. His daughter, now a nurse, came out of the house with a tray of fresh lemonade. His son, a teacher, helped Eliana set up the table for dinner. Jacques smiled, his heart full of pride. Life hadn't been easy for his children. It had taken years of healing, therapy, and honest conversations to undo the damage Marie had caused. But they had chosen love too, just like he had. As for Marie, she lived alone in a small apartment back in Brooklyn. After years of chasing men and dreams that turned into dust, she had realized too late that the love she had thrown away was the greatest gift she'd ever been given. Sometimes she would call, once a year maybe. Jacques would answer politely. He had forgiven her, but forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean reopening old wounds. He wished her peace, but he had moved on. And Jacques' brother? After the betrayal, Jacques never spoke to him again. Some lines once crossed could never be repaired, but Jacques didn't carry hate, only distance. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Jacques' granddaughter climbed into his lap. "Grandpapa," she said in a tiny voice. "How did you meet Grandma Eliana?" Jacques chuckled and looked over at Eliana, who gave him a knowing smile. "It's a long story," Jacques said, kissing his granddaughter's forehead. "A story about how even when life breaks your heart, love can find you again." The little girl nodded seriously, as if she understood. Jacques looked up at the sky, at the deep blues and purples swirling together, and whispered a quiet prayer of thanks. He had lost so much, but what he had gained, a real family, real love, real peace, was far more powerful than any pain he had suffered. And as the stars blinked into existence one by one, Jacques closed his eyes and smiled. He was finally free. It was a warm afternoon when Jacques heard a knock at the door. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened it, there she stood, older, thinner, her eyes heavy with regret. Marie. For a moment, neither spoke. The years sat between them like a wall too high to climb. Marie clutched a small purse against her chest, as if it could shield her from her shame. "Jacques," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Can I speak to you?" Jacques hesitated. Eliana watched quietly from inside. His children, now adults, had warned him Marie might try to find him again. Still, Jacques stepped outside and gently closed the door behind him. They stood on the porch, under the blooming bougainvillea vines. Marie's hands trembled. She started, then stopped. Tears filled her eyes. "I wanted to say I'm sorry." Jacques said nothing. He let her speak. "I was foolish, blind. I thought you weren't enough," she said, her voice breaking. "But you were. You were everything I needed, and I threw it all away." Jacques looked at her, really looked at her. He didn't see the beautiful young woman he once loved. He saw a broken soul, a woman carrying the weight of all her bad choices. "I hurt you," Marie whispered. "I destroyed everything good in my life. And I know I can't fix it. I just needed you to hear that I'm sorry. Truly." Jacques nodded slowly. "I forgave you a long time ago, Marie," he said softly. Marie's lips trembled. "But forgiveness," Jacques continued, "doesn't mean things go back to the way they were. It doesn't mean you can come back into my life." A tear slid down Marie's cheek. "I understand," she whispered. Jacques looked toward the house. Through the window, he saw Eliana laughing with his granddaughter. His world now, beautiful, whole, and hard-won. "You gave me pain," Jacques said. "But that pain made me stronger. It led me here, to my real life, and for that, I thank you." Marie wiped her face with the back of her hand, her shoulders shaking. "I'm happy for you," she said quietly. Jacques gave her a small, kind smile, the kind of smile that says, "I wish you peace, but I'm done suffering for you." Marie understood. She nodded, swallowing her sorrow. Without another word, she turned and walked away, her figure slowly shrinking as she moved down the street. Jacques watched her go, feeling no hatred, no anger, only a deep, calm acceptance. He opened the door and stepped back inside. Eliana looked up from where she was sitting, their granddaughter in her lap. "Who was it?" she asked gently, though she already knew. Jacques smiled and kissed her forehead. "Just someone from the past," he said. "Someone who's finally found their way, just not here." Eliana smiled warmly and squeezed his hand. "Come sit," she said. "Dinner's almost ready." Jacques sat down, pulling his granddaughter close, feeling the warmth of the home he built with love, not lies. For the first time in his life, Jacques truly understood what peace meant. He had lost so much. He had been broken, humiliated, betrayed, but now, surrounded by true love and family, Jacques knew he hadn't been defeated. He had won.